Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This one is going to be the answers and results for Avatar Trivia Challenge number 3. So we got a couple of entries here for this. You guys had, I think, 11 days to enter. Interesting thing was that most people left it until basically the last day to enter, like the night before, effectively. So up until that point, I think there was only one entry, and then all of a sudden the rest of the entries came in more or less kind of all at once. So it was pretty cool. You know, I would have liked to have seen more entries. I think there's 7 people in total who entered. But the problem with this is obviously to make the trivia challenge challenging, the questions have to be quite difficult and tricky, and in a way like you have to spend some time on them. And that is immediately not going to make it easy for a lot of people to participate in. But if I make the questions too easy, then all of a sudden everyone's getting like perfect scores. And in a way, the trivia challenge doesn't really mean anything because it's just a bunch of kind of mid to low level questions. But anyway, let's get into this. We'll jump straight in here with the answers. So question 1 was this one. 3 of the 4 Shang cities are new in the Dawn of Yang Chen. The other we have seen before. Which Shang city do we know about? Where do we know it from? And what did we know about it? So this is the answer. The answer is, of course, the Shang city Taku. We saw it in 113 The Blue Spirit, as well as it had information on the old Nickelodeon website, the Lost Lore, as it's sort of now known. Basically, all I was really looking for, the answer was some sort of a summarization of the information we get on it previously. The episode doesn't really tell you much, but the Lost Lore kind of gives you the background of, like, it was an important trading post, and it was one of the first Earth Kingdom cities destroyed in the war, and I guess we'll have to wait for the next Yang Chen book to learn more about it. So, just for anyone wanting to see that, this is from the Lost Lore, which is currently, like, it's a Tumblr account that basically archives all of the information from the old Nickelodeon website. This is what they have. So that shot is basically, we see roughly that in The Blue Spirit, and you can see abandoned ruins of Taku, and it effectively says what I just said before about it. So that's question 1, and I think most people got that right. I don't think anyone got that wrong at all. Question 2. What change in how children are thought firebending did Zuko implement after becoming Fire Lord? The answer to this one is just that the Sun Warriors' firebending movements, like the Dancing Dragon, are now mandatory in school. So he's basically made it so that he's wanting to keep the Sun Warriors a secret themselves, but utilize some of what he learned in teaching the youth of the Fire Nation to sort of change things for the better. So keeping, I suppose, the origins of this secret, but that this is the correct way to learn and do firebending. This comes from the Avatar The Last Airbender cookbook, for anyone wondering here, of course. There's actually a few, I think, answers that reference this, because in addition to the Dawn of Yang Chen, the cookbook was one of the items that came out between the last trivia and this trivia. Next, question 3. One of the more challenging questions here. So, name 11 books in the Avatar universe. They have to be 11 named/titled in-universe books. Explain where you got the name from. No translations of text unless the material itself translates it. And it says here the question will have negative marking. I didn't actually end up doing negative marking. It doesn't matter either way, because the results would be the same if I did negative marking or if I didn't do negative marking, as we'll get to. So that didn't really change anything, what way I actually ended up doing it. But it was basically so that you guys didn't just name every single book in Avatar, copy and paste the list, and you get the answer just by brute forcing every single possible answer. I wanted you to be a little bit more selective with the criteria here of making sure that it is clearly stated that this is the title of this book, and you know what you're talking about. It was sort of a kind of exercise in sourcing your information correctly, basically. So, lots of answers to this one. I was looking for 11, but from what I can tell, there's 14, 15 answers, and there's probably more if we had like an eternity to go through like the entire franchise. So I have here The Pearls of Lahima, 10 chapters on celestial circles and other artful mathematics, The Flame in the Mind, Oscillations and Harmonies, The Complete Works of Shoken, A Discourse on Floodplain Management, The Poems of Lahima, A Turning Point, Shifting Allegiances, Origins of the Harmony Restoration Movement, Rise of the Resistance, Book of Clouds, The 100-Year War, How to Be the Man, Pro-Bending Rules, and then I said in clarifications to this that Legacy of the Fire Nation was not a valid answer to this question. It was a mistake for me to say that because I forgot that the book actually says that that is the actual canonical name of the book. And so just to avoid confusion, it is a correct answer, but it is not an answer that I considered for the question. Again, I don't think it really changes anything for the most part, in that I think the people who used this answer both kind of in a way didn't gain or lose marks because of that. So that's just the way that works. So if you're wondering where some of this stuff comes from, because this is more of a kind of detailed question, you can see here that A Discourse on Floodplain Management comes from, of course, one of the novels. Specifically, it's like the first chapter of The Dawn of Yang Chen. It's mentioned, it's actually a major plot point in terms of figuring out what's going on with Yang Chen. This one's kind of difficult to miss, ultimately. 4 of them come from page 146, the chapter A Meeting of Minds, where Yang Chen visits Chai-Si, and on her bookshelf it is specifically noted for like a whole page basically to go over 4 specific books. So that is another group of answers. So straight away, like, it was a Yang Chen themed question because we learned about like 5 books in just this one. So there's 5 answers. In The Rise of Kyoshi, page 264, the Poems of Lahima is mentioned. This is an interesting one from this is just Avatar Legacies, the first of those legacy books. The 100-Year War is actually an in-universe book. Now, if you just look at this, it doesn't obviously come across that way, but if you look at the text on the opposing page, you can see here it directly says that this graphic history was created to teach children about the 100-Year War and its importance in our shared history. I've saved it for many years and now I can finally share it with you. So it's highlighting that that book is real, and this is an answer to the question. A little bit more of a subtle one, but quite nice, I think. 5 books come from basically Korra Lost Lore. This all comes from the old Welcome to Republic City game, which you can't really properly play anymore. It's kind of difficult, a bit of a challenge, but the information is all online if you can find it. And on this game, you could find information about a group of history books. So one of them is called A Turning Point, one of them is called Shifting Allegiances, one of them is called Origins of the Harmony Restoration Movement, one of them is called Rise of the Resistance, and then also there is one that says Pro-Bending Rules. Now, I went back and forth on whether or not I was considering this like the proper title of the book, and I ultimately settled on the idea in the end that, look, it's formatted in roughly the same way as the other books. I get it, maybe it's just being more of a, this is what the book is rather than the direct title of the book, but who are we to say kind of otherwise? The book is the Pro-Bending Rule book. Who's to say it's not called Pro-Bending Rule? So I accepted this one. I don't think there was any confusion about marks over it. I just was like, yeah, I think I have to accept that one. Book of Clouds, this is Aunt Wu's book, the actual specific name of it. Again, this comes from the ATLA Lost Lore. You can find out about it, so that's kind of cool. Another more subtle answer is this book here from The Stakeout from Legend of Korra. Now, you'll note that I said no translations, but interestingly, the episode commentary, Brian actually tells us what the book is called. So because stuff that Mike and Brian says are oftentimes considered canon to a certain degree, him saying that the book is called How to Be the Man makes sense. Whereas I think if you'd given me what sort of like Avatar Wiki has as like the direct translation of like How to Be a Righteous Man or something like that, that wouldn't have been a valid answer. But because Brian actually says it's called How to Be the Man, that's to me a valid answer. And that's a large part of the reason I put in that restriction on it, was for you to source the information in a more kind of correct and kind of proper way. Other than that, I think I don't think there's any others that I need to go over where the source is from. So that's that question. And I think most people did surprisingly well on that. I think very few people actually lost marks. And if they did, it was only like, one of the 11. And again, I wasn't doing negative marking. So you only lost maybe like 0.1 of a mark on that question, if even. Question 4. We know from the Shadow of Kyoshi that the Sewon clan came from nowhere to become one of the higher up clans, but the Dawn of Yang-Chen highlights they were in a good position in the past. How did they fall so low by the time of Kyoshi's era, and how did they rise up again? Answer is relatively simple. I think everyone got this one right, but everyone wrote like different amounts of text. Ultimately, I was looking for a relatively brief idea here. The first one, just highlighting that it was the second Yang-Chen deal with the Phoenix Eel spirits that put a lot of heavy restrictions on the clan, that ruined their reputation. I didn't need you to go into any massive amount of detail, but just highlighting stuff like, the top knots and other things that would ruin their reputation among the other clans. And then the second answer is just, I pretty much just summed it up very quickly as the clan rises again due to the leadership and business skills of Lady Huazo. There are a bunch of other sort of more technical answers, but fundamentally they do put it on Lady Huazo being a very kind of shrewd leader of the Sewon clan. So that is that. Question 5. We have seen the type of spirit that captures Jetson before. Where do we see these spirits, and what is extremely similar between the two appearances of these spirits? So again, this one's relatively simple. The other time we see the Shishir spirits are in K210, A New Spiritual Age. Korra encounters the Shishi or Shishir spirits. Lots of similarities between these scenes. I don't think anyone got this wrong. Some people, I think, interpreted me saying like the appearances as being very directly about like the appearance of the spirits rather than them appearing in a scene in the book, appearing in an episode of the show and creating the similarity. But everyone created some sort of a valid comparison, basically just highlighting that in both scenes we see the Shishi spirits switch from light to dark or dark to light. Both scenes feature, an avatar appearing younger because of their fear of the spirit world. Both scenes ultimately feature like the Shishi spirit being involved when the spirit guide of each avatar is held captive / trapped in the spirit world. There's a lot to say here, which is why I left the sort of question a little bit open. And then for anyone wondering, if you maybe didn't catch this, these are the spirits that obviously Korra meets, but these are also the exact same type of spirit that ultimately are what results in Jetson dying effectively and being captured and held prisoner in the spirit world. So they are in their light form, and here they are in their dark spirit form. So very cool reference there. Question 6. Name 6 characters who are missing part or parts of their body. Character must be named, no describing unnamed characters. Missing teeth or stuff like hair doesn't count. So that was just to highlight that I don't want characters who are just completely like unnamed. Like they're not really ever described. Some people I know got a little bit like, like I know one of the answers, like are you like removing them as an answer because you're saying named? But I was kind of like, no, once we know them by a name that is very clearly their name, that is fine. I wasn't trying to get technical here. And the teeth and hair stuff is just to remove minor, like, this is correct on the technicality answers. A few answers to this one. So, Kalyan, of course, some of the Dawn of Yang-Chen stuff, he's missing 2 fingers. Akudan is missing an arm. Minghua is missing both of her arms. Combustion Man is missing an arm and a leg. And again, Combustion Man and the Mechanist were the 2 that I think people were being like, are these valid answers? Because it's technically not either of their actual names. But it is the way we know the character as and stuff like that. And that is different than just, say, a random character being referred to as, say, like their military title, because that is just a title. There's a bunch of characters who go by, say, Captain, Lieutenant, but there's only one character we know of as Combustion Man. Only one character we know of as the Mechanist. Also, In clarifications, I did say that this is open to basically all beings, not necessarily just humans. So Yin Yang, Jinpa's bison, is missing one of the part of the leg, one of their legs. Pick and Pack are both missing some part of their body. Pick is missing part of the ear. It's a noticeable enough one that it's a valid answer, and Pack is missing most of its tail. We have Wei or Y is missing his nose. This is an interesting one because he's described in The Rise of Kyoshi, where he makes most of his appearance, but it's never fully made clear what exactly his injury is, other than that, like, he has received some sort of a blow to the face. It's the Shadow of Kyoshi that does reveal that he is full on missing his nose. And then 10, an interesting answer here, Rafa is missing his face. And that is just the example of a character who, it's because of spiritual means. This is probably one where, like, if I was to redo the question, I probably would have put, like, in a technicality in, like, nothing spiritual in nature. But it is a valid answer to the question. And ultimately, in terms of, like, us getting to see the character, he is, I think, also, like, the only character we can properly say who has a name where we have seen them missing a face. Because we know, say, like, Umi is missing her face, but we never see her without her face. We see the face, we know what happened, but we don't get the full kind of exact details. So with that, we move on to question 7. Pretty simple one here. What age was Earth King Feishan during the Platinum Affair? Answer is 20 years old. He's revealed to be 28 at the end of the book when Yan Chen meets him, but the Platinum Affair was 8 years ago in universe, so he was 20 when it happened. Very simple one just to keep track of, that you're aware of events in the book. I think if you followed a lot of my content, this was sort of one of those little facts that I made very clear about, so you probably knew this straight away. But anyway, question 8. Name 9 restaurants, tea houses / places to eat / drink in the Avatar world. Explain your answers, where we get the name. No translations unless translated in the material. This is basically similar to the book question, but I wasn't being as strict. With that question, I was kind of like, if it's not very clearly a name, probably not giving you the score. This one, I'm much more open to a variety of answers. So again, there are quite a few answers here. For this one, I asked for 9. I think ultimately there's like 15, 16 answers, and there's probably more, again, if we had lots more time to compile everything together. So we have the Jasmine Dragon, the Golden Cloudberry, Naruk's Seaweed Noodlery, Kwang's Cuisine, Madame Kiji's Tea House, King's Tea Palace, Cabbage Delicacies Restaurant, Ember Island Ice Cream Shop, Two Fishes Northern Cuisine, Pao Family Tea House, Fawn's Dumplings, Little Bossing Say Fashion Mall, specifically the Royal Palace, Coral Urchin Noodle Shop, Kinchao Village Tea House, and Ember Island Theatre. With this question, again, I think it was answered in general very good. There was maybe only, I think, 1 or 2 people who I think gave answers that I didn't really accept. There was a few cases where I think I gave half marks for a question. But for the most part, I think everyone did reasonably well on this. And just to go over a bunch of the answers, some of them are very obvious, like the Jasmine Dragon and certain ones. But anyway, so we have this. This is probably the one where people lost marks on. Cabbage Delicacies Restaurant. And you'll notice I said restaurant and not bistro. The reason for that is that this is why the translation thing was in there. Because the only reason people think it's bistro is because you see the name of the shop in the Rift and it has been translated out to be, bistro. But then obviously in the cookbook, it directly is referred to in English as Cabbage Delicacies Restaurant. So I gave you full marks if you said restaurant, but you did lose a tiny fraction of a mark for saying bistro instead of restaurant. So that was just a technicality on this question. The Ember Island Ice Cream Shop, of course, again, is another cookbook reference, as you can see here. Again, is it clear if this is the name of that shop or are they just in general referring to an Ember Island ice cream shop? I'm not sure, but it was a valid answer to the question. The Pao Family Tea House gets a full title name here in Legacy of the Fire Nation, if you're wondering about that. Fawn's Dumplings is mentioned here in An Avatar's Chronicle by Asami, and I think also in Turf Wars as well. The Little Bossing Say Fashion Mall. This was an interesting one because two people I think gave me this answer, but one was much more detailed than the other one. If you just said Bossing Say Fashion Mall, I couldn't give you the full marks because you are basically referring to an entire grouping of shops and restaurants as an individual place. And I thought that wasn't really within the kind of spirit of the question. I wanted it to be a little bit more technical. But someone specifically said, Bossing Say Fashion Mall, like Royal Palace, which is correct. Wu goes in here and then within there gets up to where the Royal Palace is. And when we go in, you can see that it is in fact a restaurant, a place that sells food. So even though it's not technically named sort of as such, I was giving marks for this one. I thought this was a pretty clever answer with a little bit of a technicality to it. So I liked this one quite a bit. Then if you're wondering about King's Tea Palace, this is another ATLA Lost Lore situation. So that's that. Two Fishes Northern Cuisine is an interesting one because, again, it is a sign, not in English. No one refers to it as this, but the book itself gives the translation. It's not an outside translation. The book itself tells you what it's called. So this was a valid answer to the question. The Coral Urchin Noodle Shop is mentioned in the Shadow of Kyoshi, specifically the chapter called The Weakness, as just a place that they're kind of hanging out in. And then Kinchao Village Tea Shop. This was one I went back and forth on whether or not I should accept this as an answer, because as you can see here in the text, it just says it's a Great Stone Tea House, but then it says it's an unnamed establishment. So because I wasn't being strict, I ultimately just went with, I think this is a valid answer to the question. If I was being as harsh previously, this might have been one I docked people marks on, but I don't think it changes too much ultimately in the grand scheme of things. And everywhere else, I think people should know about basically where they are. Like Naruk Seaweed Noodlery is referenced in the show. We go to Kwang's Cuisine in an episode. That's pretty clear cut in my mind. So that's, I think, everything there is on that question. So, question 9. A question I knew was a little bit subtle, but I didn't think would catch out as many people as it actually did. This ended up being a real kind of deal breaker question for quite a few people in terms of getting a really, really high score. And I think in one person's case, having a chance at the overall victory. So really unfortunate here with this one. But anyway, John Dury has a reputation for messenger hawk messages being insecure. Chai-Si knows everything that is happening in her city. She even reveals she has a message meant for Yang Chen that she chanced upon. How does Chai-Si chance upon these messages? So the answer is this. Yang Chen notes a raven eagle nest in a tree she and Chai-Si walk by. There's a platform that the nest is on, highlighting an awareness and care for the birds. It is noted that Yang Chen's letter has blood on it as well as a scratch. Chai-Si also says that she got the letter by finding an injured messenger hawk. The conclusion has to be that, like Combustion Man, Chai-Si uses raven eagles she raises on the island to intercept messenger hawks. You didn't have to word it exactly like that, but the key part of this question and the answer I was looking for was I wanted a reference to raven eagles. If you didn't have that, you were only getting partial marks on this question. And I think there was even someone who referenced raven eagles, but didn't make it clear at all that they were aware that there was a raven eagles reference directly in the book. So I think I gave half marks to a few people on this question, and I gave 3/4 marks to one person on this question. But this was definitely a major question in terms of people losing quite a few marks, because everyone got really high marks on this this trivia. So losing half a mark was huge, because otherwise people were only losing like 0.1, 0.2 on some of the give me 10, give me 9 of these questions. And then as we'll see with the last question, everyone lost 1/3 of a mark because no one found the answer to the last question. But anyway, that's with this one. Otherwise, like, I was willing to give you marks for knowing the general idea, but everyone zoomed in on the letter and the scratch and assuming that stuff like that. I did feel a few people were just a little bit like almost rephrasing the question. Like, I was basically in the question saying she basically intercepts messages. How is she doing this? And then people's answer was that Chai-Si is intercepting the messages. And you can sort of see why it's not like a particularly substantial answer and why I wanted the detail on this one. And yeah, just to make it really clear, here's the section in the book. And you can see, under a tree, she noticed a pile of broken eggshells that must have come from a sizable bird. And when she looked up, she saw a platform made of planks holding a nest, raven eagles judging by the loose feathers. And then, of course, the bit that everyone did focus on, the idea of this and the whole idea. There was a scratch in the back, a brown dot that might have been a speck of dried blood, and then like Combustion Man uses a raven eagle to take out hawks. This is really doubling down on the idea that that is what raven hawks are really, really known for, and it is a done thing by people in the Fire Nation. So very cool connection there, a very subtle question that I didn't think would trick people as much as it actually did. Not that it was a trick, I think people just focused in on one detail and maybe forgot to look elsewhere. But anyway, question 10, surprisingly easy. This is probably one of those questions where like maybe I wish I'd come up with a different question, but we had to have some questions that were just like, were not relentlessly difficult. Name 4 characters who know at least some of Guru Shoken's work. Answer: Chai-Si, Yang Chen, Lao Ge, and Kyoshi. So Chai-Si has obviously read his work. She gives the book to Yang Chen. We know Yang Chen goes on to read it and is familiar with his work. Lao Ge is obviously familiar with his work. And then he tells Kyoshi at least a few quotes and a little bit about Shoken, highlighting the point of the question, why I say at least some of Kyoshi is basically why I worded it that way. And then question 11. This was sort of the question I had basically since the last trivia that I knew would be the one sort of very difficult question that people might not get. But I didn't think no one would get it in full. So name 3 pieces of story content that Wan Shi Tong appears in. A very simple question fundamentally, in that everyone gets the first 2. 210, The Library. K210, A New Spiritual Age. And everyone seemed to fall over themselves trying to find the last one. The answer is the Legend of Korra video game, specifically the 3DS version only. You will not find this in just the console version of the game, PC version of the game. Only the 3DS version, which is a very different version of that game, but is still a valid version of that game. It is just a version of the game that very few people focus on. Now, again, just to explain some of this, I think clear in some of the clarifications on this question that I was looking for like a proper story appearance, which is why I wasn't really accepting the sort of ATLA lore archive stuff or just a slight variation of like a recap of like the library or something like that. I wanted a full-on extra appearance, and this fits that completely. That you have ATLA era book 2 stuff, you have Korra book 2 stuff, and then the video game stuff is set post book 2. So they are 3 distinct different kind of like periods where Wan Shi Tong makes an appearance. And so if you're really unaware of this, here we go. So I took a few screenshots here of this. So you can see here, during one of the chapters, you go to the Spirit Library. This is right towards the end of the game. This section is like added in right before you have that final encounter with Hundun. Right before he goes into the whole like explaining his plan Dan Tien thing, you do just have to go through the library and you do end up fighting Wan Shi Tong. So you can see here we have the crew in the spirit world here in the library with some dark spirits. You can see here Wan Shi Tong is the boss on this map when you get that far. And here you can see is a piece of story content where he directly talks to the characters during this sequence. And you can see here, primary objective, take down Wan Shi Tong, highlighting that he is in fact here. Now, you can maybe make some sort of an argument about like, wait, does this not sort of slightly contradict some of the stuff said in like the Legends RPG? But again, we weren't considering that to exist for the sake of this trivia. We can have this discussion perhaps a little bit later on about should we consider this version of the game canon, and how we exactly work that. But in my mind, this is like a 2013/2014 thing that came out in an era where they were more considering stuff being canon. We know Mike and Brian worked on the video game to at least a certain degree with the story. We have no reason to deny this being canon. It is part of an official video game and a somewhat modern video game. It is just obscure, and not many people know about it, because this, I think, only saw release in certain North American territories and never came out in other regions. And I think the last two trivias have highlighted that people really are not familiar with this version of the game, because of course we discovered the whole Dantian thing in the last trivia, and now we've discovered a whole extra canonical Wan Shi Tong appearance in this version of the game. It's interesting to note that there is just an actually quite notable piece of Avatar media that people are really, really not familiar with. But this, as you can see here, is an answer to the question. So what that meant was that everyone by default was down a third of a mark. And so the one person who actually got partial marks on the third part of this question had a chance to actually win this in full. And it was so unfortunate because the answer that was given to me was effectively just a guess. And typically the way I do these in this, especially with a question like this, is that if you just randomly happen to guess what it is, I can't give you full marks for it, because the whole point is that you actually know what it is. So someone did say, I'm guessing it's probably like the 3DS version of the video game, because I'm not really familiar with that. But in their answer gave no actual reference to this, anything specific about the Wan Shi Tong appearance in the game, which I needed to fully give marks for that. So I did give partial marks there. So someone got marks that no one else got. It's just they fell down on another question, and it was so unfortunate, because otherwise I think they had it. Because it was the Hawk question that they fell down on, and it was such a reaction I had going through the answers and realizing that the winner fundamentally came down to chancing upon the answer to the question no one else got, but slightly fumbling on a doable but slightly obscure question. So anyway, let's get into the results now. So note, max score is 11 out of 11. Partial scores were given when applicable. My aim when correcting these was basically, I was going to give you marks if I could at all give you marks. My aim was not to sort of take marks away as much as possible to make it tricky. No, I'm being very generous with what I'm accepting as answers, and I feel every mark that were taken away were absolutely correct in why they were taken away. So let's get into it here. So bottom four, we have, as you can see here, the scores. Lowest score is like a high 9. So people only losing 1 and a bit marks at most. So we have Tabia here at 7, Kashti's at 6, Lauren at 5, Brittany at 4, and you can see over 4, like 10.333. And again, we're keeping up the idea that the max score that anyone's getting, because no one got everything right, is 10.66. So as we see here, going into the top 3, we have Gersh here with 10.361. Insert first name here, insert last name here with 10.575. And the winner is Lee with 10.666. So the max score that anyone was going to get here, but not a perfect score. Meaning that our Avatar Trivia Challenge winner once again is Lee, aka Googleoplex. And yeah, we can see here, this is the now results of everything. Avatar Trivia Champions overall is in first place, Lee with 3 wins, 2 of which were with a perfect score. In second place was Yuto with 1 win with a perfect score. And the reason we're on Avatar Trivia 3, but there are 4 winners, is because Trivia number 1 had co-champions. Both players got max scores. So, in terms of the prize, Lee already informed me that if he did happen to win, he doesn't really want the prize, so the prize goes to second place. So insert first name here, insert last name here, gets the prize, and I will contact them about what topic they would like discussed in a video for that. So yeah, that's been it. I thought this was pretty good. I'm happy with how this came together. I was happy with the difficulty of the questions, and obviously pretty happy with how everyone answered it overall. I think a bunch of these questions were nice kind of like learning opportunities of like, oh yeah, how many books are there in the Avatar universe? And oh yeah, named restaurants, that's a cool thing to know. And there's a few, you know, just, okay, show me you've read the books and stuff like that questions, and a few more like, oh, that's actually a fun fact to know on the answer from that question. And then very nice one at the end here with sort of an obscure reference that's actually a relatively notable one. That's why I really liked that last question, was the whole, such a simple question. 3 like story appearances of Wan Shi Tong. Very simple question, but you get the 2 and then you're like, what on earth is the third one? And I could tell that so many people answering this one were just like, oh, I'm so frustrated that I couldn't get that last part of that question. But now you know. I'm guessing there's going to be quite a few people maybe going out to check up information on the 3DS version of the game. There are playthroughs on YouTube. That's where I got these screenshots from. It seems like a long parts of gameplay. There is not that much extra new stuff in the grand scheme of the game, but there's subtle little things there if you're interested at all. And then final thing to say, when will the next trivia be? The next trivia I'm thinking is going to be Avatar Legends role-playing game. Like that's going to be the kind of theme of it. We're going to have to wait until, of course, the game is available to buy for everyone. And then I'm going to wait a little bit after that, just so people have time to get it, time to kind of read over it more and stuff like that. So depending on when that happens, you know, could be right at the end of the year, or it could be early next year. Either way, it'll probably be a good few months until the next one. But the plan is it won't be years upon years until the next one. We'll do a Legends RPG focused one at some point within the next probably like 6 to 9 months, assuming the release of the Legends role-playing game goes well. So thanks everyone for playing. Congrats to Lee once again for winning. But yes, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.